This is the School of the Future competition this year in the Southeast region. We had middle school students from Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina all compete, and then we had state winners. This morning at 10 o'clock we had the North Carolina state winners of Neal Middle School. And today at 10 minutes after 4, we will have the winners of the Commonwealth of Virginia, which is Thoreau Middle School. And I don't know where Mike went. Mike was their teacher. And so we really appreciate you all taking the effort to come down and presenting to us. This is a juried event, so we're going to be respectful of that and make sure that the jury gets, there will be a number of questions that the jury will ask at the end of the presentation. So we will, you all be prepared to ask those great questions that you did earlier this morning. And is there anything else logistically wise we need to go? We've all got our scorecards, I guess, from this morning to complete. And thank you all, audience in the back, for coming in and watching this process unfold. We appreciate it. Okay, you all ready? Let's begin.
I'm Katie.
I'm Jonah.
Is that mic on?
And our school is called the Charles Darwin Academy. And we chose the quote that is up here because it symbolizes what we want our students to live around. And so it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. And Charles Darwin said that himself.
All right, so LEED certification is a way to measure how green a school can be. So throughout this presentation, we will answer how our school conserves energy, increases airflow, saves taxpayer money, uses sustainable materials, etc. So through water efficiency, we use gray water recycling for the school, which, if you don't know, is like using wastewater or water that we can't drink for stuff like toilets and other stuff that doesn't require healthy water. Okay, so in order to make iron and steel, a lot of carbon is released into the atmosphere, which isn't good for the atmosphere at all. So by using wood, we don't have to make it, which doesn't release much carbon. And then once the wood is in place, it doesn't make much carbon either. And then in order to make iron and steel, there's a lot of processes and such that you don't have to go through it where wood grows. You cut it down and you use it. So you don't have to worry about making it or anything. It just keeps coming on back. And then it's also it has a lot more longevity than like a wall of steel or iron does. So we use wood because it lasts longer and we have practically an endless supply as long as we plant more as we keep moving along.
So adding on to what you said about the gray water, we can implement that in our low flush toilets instead of using clean water, because you don't need clean water for toilets. And then if you were to use low flush toilets instead of the amount of water that people use in their everyday toilets, a family of 4 could save over 11,000 gallons a year, and imagine what a whole school would be. So we've also implemented circular buildings into our design, and they can withstand really high winds and bad weather. But also, the circularness of it can help with the airflow. So instead of it stopping like in a rectangular building, it will keep on flowing through. And then also, rectangular shapes are known to be the weakest structure in nature. And so we chose a circular structure because it is much stronger. So we also have geothermal heating, which the Earth's core is really high in thermal energy, and so we are pulling that energy up through water pipes, and we're using that to heat our building, and it is much more energy reusable and good for the environment. So we have solar panels, which are right here, and they're on an awning, so instead of hitting it on a flat surface, it's hitting at an angle, and that'll be a much more direct angle, and it'll absorb the light much more efficiently.
So passive solar heating. On the south side of every building, there's the most sunlight in the afternoon. So in the winter, when your building is cold, you want as much sunlight to get into your school so you can warm it up. So you have large windows on the back, so you can get all the sunlight possible into the school during the winter, when the sun is lower. In the winter, the sun is lower in the afternoon. But then in the summer, when you don't need more heat, the sun happens to be higher. So we have an awning off the back of our school, which blocks the sunlight from getting in the windows, and we don't want as much sunlight as we do in the winter.
One of the unique aspects of the school that we're doing is that we're implementing a full wooden building. It's an innovative idea because we're making it all out of wood, because out of concrete you have to work a lot more on making it, whereas with wood it's a lot more natural. It grows, as Jonah said. And it was first designed a wooden structure, full wooden, by an architect named Michael Green in Vancouver. He had a TED talk about it. Carbon sequestration is the main point that we use, because when wood is growing, it absorbs all the carbon from the air, and it's the main base in the wood. So when we build the school out of it, rather than the carbon being released back into the atmosphere, it's trapped inside the wood for that time. And also, per square foot, looking at northern BC, northern British Columbia in Canada, it's per square foot $9 cheaper to make it out of wood than out of concrete. And when you're making it with one story rather than a skyscraper, and for an entire school, it's a lot of money to save per square foot. And also, more CO2 is produced when you, as I said, making steel, smelting it, and milling it, rather than this. And also, the main problem that we have is deforestation. So, rather than cutting down entire forests, we would be taking down things that are previously dead. Like, many of you have probably heard of the emerald ash beetle. It's an insect that's destroying a lot of ash trees. So we would take wood that's been destroyed, and every piece of wood, every tree that we take, we'd plant. And many of the concerns of fire is the strength, as we said, insects and deforestation. Fires, because it's not just wood, we don't take just planks. We take panels of it and we condense it as much as we can, and we put it vertically next to each other so that it's basically just as strong as concrete, except it's made of wood. Okay. On a completely different topic, more technologically, Corning touch glass. It's basically smart glass. It is extremely, well, it can be put basically anywhere. It's in any shape, it's movable, and it's connected to the internet, and it's see-through, it's glass. It's very energy efficient, and it means that students from basically anywhere in the hallways of the classrooms or on their desks even can access the internet from anywhere and work on projects.
So where we have the Corning touch glass in these little like half circles over here, that we have the Corning touch glass that separates and makes triangular classrooms. So each one of these little classrooms has at least 2 panes of Corning touch glass to use for whatever reason necessary.
Okay, another thing we're using is wireless charging, which is possible right now but not very widely spread. It's creating a small electromagnetic field around a charging station, and a device has a second coil of metal inside that picks up the electromagnetic field and transfers it into a current to charge the device.
So we also have fingerprint locks on the lockers and the doors. And this is really awesome because the teachers don't have to remember their keys, because you guys know how you forget things all the time. And then also, they have to remember their locker combinations. And as a middle school student, it's stressful to have to remember something like that. And with a lot of time that they get to in between classes, it's sometimes hard to rumble through a locker combination. So it's much faster to use fingerprint lockers. We also have paperless readers, which are tablets, obviously. And with this, the teachers can monitor the progress of their students with their reading projects. And it's also environmentally friendly because they don't have to cut down as many trees. But there will be an option of paper books because some students don't learn as well with the technological advancements that we have these days. So they have those options.
All right, so first we're going to just go over everything we didn't already see in the past So circular structure. This is sort of an oval, except we have little like square entrance here. The hallways here. There's a courtyard here and here. There's cafeteria here, and the rest are classrooms with the core and touch classrooms. Here are the gyms. The two locker rooms you can't see because of the solar panels. There's a field back here, parking lot, and everywhere else to drive in and drop your kids off. So we believe this is where all your brothers, your sisters, your grandparents, your cousins, your nephews, your first cousins, second removed, trice, whatever it's called, or whatever it is that's related to you, should learn. This is the best possible way for them to get everything done they need to get done, to have fun, to just learn and look forward to coming the next day. So, but this is a school of the future competition. But we strongly feel that this could be the future of today. We should stop focusing on what we can do in the future and just do it. And stop waiting. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and let me start by saying congratulations on a successful project and for winning the Virginia nominee to this stage. Very nicely done. We're delighted to have you guys here. Thanks for taking out a little bit of your summer break to join us down here in Georgia. So thank you. I have two questions. I'm going to ask them. Question one, please answer that, and then question two. The first question is, how do you see learning in the future different from the way it is today?
Well, moving out of the comfort zone, because like I feel like a lot of people want their paper. They can see it there. It's always there. People can file it away. But we should start to move away from that. I bet people couldn't see like an iPhone in the future many years ago, but then we got it and it was great. It was a change. We should try to make changes to see what's successful. We should move away from paper and such, and try to place things like orange glass and solar panels and all the circular building and everything that is moving away from the regular rectangles and such.
What do you think, Lee?
Well, I think that the students should be able to adapt to the new technological changes that we have been putting into them, and that they should be comfortable with it first.
I think that in learning, the problem we have today is that when you give somebody an assignment, I mean, we hear stories of, like, jokes about people giving pop quizzes every day. But that was, I mean, strategies that teachers use now are a lot different. Every generation there will be different strategies, and when we use paper or paperless reading and cloning touch glass or whatever may come, it makes us change a lot more, and we'll keep what fits.
So I like what you said about the evolution of teaching and different strategies being applicable tomorrow as opposed to today. I think that's what I inferred from your answer. My second question relates to the first, and it is, how does your building that you've designed respond to differences in learning in the future?
Well, like I said, so your first question is that we should move out of the comfort zone, which is making circles, making corny touch glass, having like triangles and such, corny touch glass, circles and everything, with solar panels, so we can try new stuff, and that's how we've implemented that to our project.
Well, we plan to use the corny touch glass, and that is much different than what other students have used. It's practically a wall of an iPad, and it'll be very different for them, but it'll be a lot easier because they can have a much visual, more type of learning if they're visual learners, and it'll be much more beneficial for them.
I think that one of the most important things is that in schools today, all the things are compacted because you want to save money in the building process and you want to make everything as small as possible. But when you do something like this, our school is purposely a lot larger than it probably should be for the students that it has. It's a relatively small school population-wise. We want to be able to have it support new changes. We want to always be able to implement new technology. And the problem with our school is that whenever we get new things, we have to find a place for them, and everything else old has to find a new home. Like, we have a warehouse in Fairfax County literally of just textbooks. It's just sitting there. But with a bigger school, we always, like pointing touch glass, you can remove it. When the next big thing comes, we want to always be able to change. We want to change things while still keeping on what fits.
All right. I think y'all did a great job. The way you had it laid out was very good. When you talk about school of the future, I think you really look at two major things: sustainability and technology. And I think y'all, I'm from Texas, okay? Y'all really focused on that right at the beginning. It kind of pulled us in, and I think that was really important. Your model's great. Did a fantastic job with that. One thing I'd like to ask is community involvement and engagement. What did y'all do in terms of having the community take part in this process?
I think the biggest point of having a green school is that when you do this, we're not just having like a green school, we're not just recycling, we're not, recycling water, waste, we're teaching them to do the thing. We want to teach them the right way to do things to make the community better.
By putting in things like, it seems like the little things that matter the most, like the fields in the back, or like even the trees in the front, it makes people want to be around the new type of everything. And you, like, even with the Corn Touch class, people want to go to the school. They want to try something new. They want change.
Well, adding on to what they said, we want to teach them to do these things outside of this environment, and I think that is what will happen, and that is what Charles Darwin was expecting from us in the future.
One more question. You can hold that. I can talk loud enough. The orientation of your building, how do you have it oriented on the side? North, south, east, west?
Well, this is the south side back here, so this makes it north, east.
Great job, and I love the way you guys focused on the why. I thought that was excellent as far as using wood as a carbon offset, and the circular design for airflow, and the angles of the solar. So I thought that was phenomenal, and kudos for that. But as far as the classroom itself, so they're triangular. How about talk a little bit about where does the teacher stand, and sort of what does that learning environment look like within your school of the future?
Well, the Corning touch glass can be moved around about the classroom, and so the teacher can really teach from wherever they want. And so that.
But then in like these classrooms where there aren't Corning touch glass, I would see, given that the teacher probably wants to view everybody, there's probably the point where they would want to stand is probably in the middle here, but I could see them standing either corner, whichever one makes them feel most comfortable.
One of the things in the corner, as kind of Jonah said, I would envision that they would stay in the corner so they can, as the outside of this part is a triangle, but this side is circular. It's kind of a weird shape. But it means that they can angle all the desks so they face the teacher, so everybody has a straight view. It's not, somebody has their back to them or the back to the wall. You're not just putting kids in a circle, you're facing them wherever the teacher basically wants them. There's a lot more that goes to town.
Hi, I'm PJ. I think we spoke earlier. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, from your state joy. I have a follow-up question to what everybody has been talking about. You have come up with a wonderful structure with a lot of technology, and you have addressed the issue of instruction to a certain point. I want to ask you, you built such a wonderful building. In terms of use, have you thought about what happens throughout the year? Are you still following the same model that it's closed for 3 months of a year, or what are you thinking about? The other question I had was, alluded to it, is community use. If you have such a wonderful technological building, how do you have, what do you have planned for the community to come in and use it and learn from what you're proposing.
So, what was the first question?
Okay, typically today, your current school, you're out of school now, it's closed for 3 months a year, right? When you have a building like that for learning, what do you anticipate, how will it be used?
During the 3 months of the empty year?
No, the whole year, how do you expect, or what are your thoughts about how it should be used throughout the 12 months?
I feel like they should embrace all the stuff that they can. So, given that they have Corning touch glass and paperless readers, I think they should embrace that, and they should completely, like, almost abolish paper for everything that they can, except for, like, the necessary needs for, like, I don't know what they may need it for, but if they really need it, then they should use it. But they should embrace the needs. They should use air conditioning to, like, work the airflow and try to not pay energy bills and use the solar panel.
I think that year-round, it's not just a school for the kids, because if something like this would ever happen in this school, Charlestown Academy, it would be just as much of learning for the kids as with this new technology. We could have anybody who wants to, during the off time in the summer or on weekends or just on time after school, have people who come in and teach adults how to use them. And also,
Well, we plan to have a very engaging after-school program, and anyone can come into the school and use the technology that we have in it. So.
Thank you.
I don't need a mic either. I'm too loud. My name is Keith Spring with Interface, and one of the questions I would have is, who did you guys, besides your mentors or advisors, did you talk to other people within the school system to find out kind of what their ideas were, or did you collaborate with any other facility people, et cetera, just to get an idea of what was, what their expectations or what they thought the future were?
Well, our school is going through a renovation right now, and so we actually got to meet with the architects that are designing our renovation. And we went in for a meeting with our parent-teacher association, and we listened in on the points that they had to say about it.
Well, I just picked up information over time. A lot came from Mike Olderick in the back behind you. I just talked to him, and when something came to my mind, I was like, hey, why can't we do this? And a lot of the time, we did end up putting it in, and it ended up being successful, and it worked.
I think a lot of this, as Katie said, we're going through renovations, so a lot of the time we look at something and it's kind of weird when you think about why it does that, and like think about it ourselves or ask somebody, and when we learn something like that, we think, wow, that was such a cool idea, and we would implement it. It's just a lot of tips that we haven't learned through any jobs that we can learn.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up question. From your meetings with the architect and or the PTA, what was your biggest takeaway? Or if you can give us an example of what you just alluded to.
I think it was basically that when we went through that, they had like 50 boards with all the previous designs and the third story and that they're not going to build, but they have a lot of different like planning stages. The main thing, it wasn't anything specific. It was that they have to know everything in advance. You can't kind of wing anything in a building.
So, yeah, a lot of what he said, I've watched a lot of stuff my whole life. I've been places, I've seen how things are made, and so I was able to just understand where they were coming from and why they were doing what they do.
Well, what they said, we took away what we learned from that. And we also asked around our school to see if they had any ideas that they would want to see in the future.
You had some very interesting technologies and architectural elements. Were there any innovations that you researched and decided not to use in the school?
I think, yes, we tried a bunch of things. We looked into the costs of a lot of stuff. I wanted to put in a billboard that takes water out of the air, but it wasn't, we looked at the cost and we weren't sure it was 100% energy efficient and we would actually make our money back. So no, we didn't end up putting it in the project.
There are a lot of things that, like Jonah said, the water supply, if you're countering the water supply versus electricity supply, if there's less water, then something that draws water out of the air would be very helpful. But if we were putting this in a spot where most are plentiful, there are a lot of ideas that are for specific places, like places in the Middle East or Africa where water is scarce, but you might have the energy to be able to draw it, and things like that, very specific. We just assumed that we have the water supply, although depending on where we were, we might use a lot of extra things.
Hi, I'm Keith Edwin with Virginia CEFPI. Thank you for making the trip down here. Y'all collaborated as part of this project. You just didn't sit in the classroom lined up in front of your teacher, and at the end of the day you had a project. So collaboration was involved. Does your school provide any ease of collaboration as part of its design? And if so, tell us a little bit about that facet of the design.
I think with the circular shape, it makes it really easy to move around and be with people. There's a lot of space. You can, we're taking advantage of everything that we can do. And even with the Corn and Touch triangular classrooms, being able to move the Corn and Touch classes, you're able to make room for other people and work together to form what you want to form.
Along with Lisa, the Corn and Touch classes, you can make it in basically any shape as long as you have different panels. And assuming that you have enough teacher funding for teachers to teach them individually, it basically means that we can have one teacher for a small group and make sure, even if they switch off, that every group gets what they need, and we can make a very good learning.
We have the ergonomic furniture in our classrooms, and the students can move them around, and they can work together with those, and it will help them collaborate a lot more.
Can you share with us maybe what you liked most about this project and what was the most difficult part of the project?
Probably the most difficult part was making the physical model, because all this is paper. We had to stand it up and tape it and put everything together, and we put a lot of detail into it. We got trees and all that other stuff, but it was not easy to make.
I think the hardest part was going through ideas, because you can't just Google good ideas. You have to know what you want before you want it, and before you can find it. And in order to find Corning Touch Glass, we had to Corning Touch Glass. We heard from one of our teachers. It was just a cool idea that they heard of somewhere else. So a lot of the things we don't find, they find us. That was the hard part, since we can't really control the flow of information that we get. And the best part, I think the best part was that we did this after school, so it wasn't an in-class thing. We did this, and we only got people who, for this project, really wanted to do it. So we didn't have, we basically had a good group. Nobody there didn't want to be there.
I think the hardest part was preparing for this, because it's hard to get up and talk in front of a bunch of professionals, and they can criticize your every move and everything that you say. And I think that was really hard to prepare what we were gonna say and the points we were gonna knock on. So.
Anybody else on the jury? No? We can take one or two questions from those in the back. If any of you all have any questions you'd like to ask the team members?
It wouldn't be fair when you do that for the
All right, never mind. You can ask afterward. Question we just off the record.
Okay, off the record, yes.
I mean, it's
Off
just
the record,
yeah.
okay.
No,
Yeah, it's fine. I'm interested in knowing because we have a lady in the back who was in this program years ago.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and ask the question. We'll take a couple.
Okay. So first, congratulations on your project. I think it was really interesting how you incorporated different aspects of new technology as far as like in how your building is created and then also in the classroom. I'm really curious on the interaction between the teacher and the student. So what role did your teachers in your school play? What role in your future school would your teachers play? And then conversely, how would your students interact with them, and how is that better in this future school as versus what school is like today?
All right, so with all like the Coin Touch class and the furniture that we have in the school, it is very hands-on for the student. It lets them do a lot of the work. So I feel like the teacher is sort of your steering wheel, but you got to do the driving. You have to do what you want to do, and they're just going to lead you along the way. But then you still have to figure out what you're going to do from there.
I think it's a lot about the teachers. With new technology, the teachers are just as much teaching them the subject as the technology. So it would be a lot more, the more science in the school, the more the students will be guided toward the path of STEM and engineering. So, I mean, if the teachers teach them how to program or use this kind of thing, then they'll be able to do it much better as an adult.
I think that the teachers are more like mentors and friends. They're there to guide them on their path, but the students really need to push themselves and to get to where they want to be in their life. I have a follow-up question to that. You sort of mentioned that the technology would be teaching a lot of the subject to the students, and I've heard this question before, and I'm really curious as to your response. Do you think that teachers are still necessary in the 21st century school?
Yeah, or at least for
Why?
At least for the 21st century. I feel like
Tread lightly.
Yeah, your mentor.
well, at least for a little bit longer. It might start
A little bit longer.
today. So it'll still be in your lifetime. So it might start to move away from that, but as of right now, I think eventually, yes, we will get to a point where we might not even need teachers but since we're getting more like you see like 2-year-olds walking around with an iPhone these days, the more we get into technology, I think the less we're going to need people to teach the subject. But as of right now, I think we'll still need people to teach kids how to do stuff and even to use the technology.
I think that we'll basically always need teachers because it's kind of how I felt in like first, second, and third grade. The teachers, they were good teachers, but they didn't really think that we were worth teaching. I mean, they kind of were textbook teachers. I mean, if we wanted to learn out of a textbook or on the computer, we do it at home. So teachers are always there to answer your questions. They're there to add some personality to the classroom. They're there to teach you something individual, not just off a baseline.
Like Chris said, I think that we need them. We need them to guide us, and the younger children, they need someone to be there to be their role model and to look up to. Thank you.
Was there another one over here? Mike, did you have something?
Just real quick, I wanted to address the criticism because I think a lot of times when we ask questions, there was no criticism necessarily intended by that, but it was really as you go through life, there'll be questions that are asked just to help people understand better. So don't take it as criticism. This will be a great experience for you down the road because you'll be asked a lot of questions as you go down the road.
It'll help you with your first job interview.
You won't get into drawings, even a layout in Revit or other. Is that presented somewhere? Is that what that folder is on the table?
Here,
And also on that.
Oh, he's pulling that up.
Yeah, he's.
Oh.
so we're at the toolbar, Mr.
Just hit 0 or O in order.
Alright, well, see, there you go.
And then, so there's this class that Mr. Yu teaches at our school, which is focused on drawing these types of computer models. And so that's where we got our basis for learning these. And then we took that outside of school to work on this project.
Very good.
I have one more question. So, how many others were in this project with you? Was it just you three?
Well, I was a late addition. We had one person who you see over there above my little blue pen name, named Spencer. He moved to Oregon like a couple days ago. No, Washington, like a couple days ago. So he wasn't able to make it, and we needed more than 2 to compete. So I just caught up on all the material.
So, as you began planning this project, in a week you decided what you were going to do, or did you have to give and take with each other? How did that go? And what do you take away from that?
We met once a week, and it was kind of strange because in the beginning, we all just bounced ideas around since we didn't really have any structure. We didn't really take it seriously at that point. And we just kind of went on the internet and found stuff and walked around school. We asked teachers a lot about what they think a good learning environment would be given unlimited funding. And that gave us a lot of our good ideas.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You seem to be very excited and motivated learners, and very impressive. What made you that way?
I'm competitive. I want to win.
Pardon me?
I said I'm competitive.
Okay, what made you that way?
My parents.
You described the elementary school, though, as not necessarily being a supporter of that end based on your profile of the teacher. What does the school have to do to bring that motivation to bear in your learning experience?
I think I think that it was mainly not the teachers, well, it was the teachers, but they just didn't take us seriously. I mean, we were like 8 years old or 7 or 6, but we actually did learn stuff. I'm sure some of you remember you weren't dead back then. You actually you learned stuff that you learned a lot of important things, and you don't want to learn to hate school. You want to learn to like it.
Good.
Well, I think we're very motivated because the teachers at our middle school right now are very engaging, and they take the next step to get us interested in different things outside of just the learning environment.
And I think I don't even know that the teachers motivate me much or the environment or anything. I just know that if I want to be successful at doing what I want to do, it all starts with having good grades so you can get into a good college, and then you can go wherever you want.
Okay. That's it. Let's give him a hand.